Okay, I think we're live. Welcome, everybody, those that are on and those that are not on. This is Wunntee Weeklies on Wednesdays, episode 2. I think at some point I'm just going to do WWW, which is going to be fun. Um, Number 2, we're excited about this. Last week was a super success. I was really excited about what we were able to talk about last week and everyone that we got on. Today, our numbers have almost doubled. And if you don't count me, they have actually doubled, so I'm excited about that. Hopefully that growth will continue, and we're really excited about that. Today, I'm going to talk about a couple of things. There's some housekeeping things that we need to go through, and then I'll introduce people that are on the call. And actually, I might let you. Maybe we'll do that later. We'll do the pleasantries and the intros after I talk, because I want this stage to myself for a little while. So we got some cool people on the call, and plus at that point, more people might have joined. We're hoping, fingers crossed. So we're excited about that. A couple of things. Number one, apparently Facebook does not tell me all the people that have liked the Wunntee Unlimited page. So it's kind of, at this point, it's kind of like a honor system type thing. So there are some people that I was like, you've tried to join the group, but you haven't liked the page. And they're like, yes, I have. And I said, no, you haven't, because I haven't seen it. And they're like, oh, no, I have. And I was like, all right, well, and then I looked it up online. Apparently they're right. So we'll just have to believe that you have done the things that you're supposed to do. I mean, I have your email address, so it's all good anyway. I guess that could be the thing that you have to do. Anyway, that's the first thing. Number two, as we continue along doing this, what I've thought about doing, I had an idea today, and this is open for discussion. I think we'll just see kind of how things go moving forward. But what I think will be fun is as we have more numbers, I don't know how many people the Google Hangouts are going to handle. I think 10 is the number, unless you have some other fancy plugin, which I'm not going to get. So what we might do is, as we grow, once we hit that number, I might feature certain people that are in the group. We might just like pick people like, hey, this is somebody who's doing something cool. Let's get on. We'll discuss something. We'll talk about some strategies in Infusionsoft, maybe go through some of the things that they're doing to share, and then talk about some of that stuff. So we'll see kind of how all that goes. I'll probably do a poll in the Facebook group, so be on the lookout for that. Or share your opinion with me without it being asked for. That's always good as well. And you have my email address, so just go ahead and hit me up anytime. And as always, you can send questions in by email, via Twitter. That, by the way, is a shameless plug for you to interact with me more on Twitter so that I feel cooler about myself. So feel free to do that. It's a public thing, so I like other people seeing that I got questions asked of me and then answering them. So go ahead and do that. Today, we have some cool stuff that we're going to be talking about. I want to kind of pick up where I left off last week. Last week, we talked about some of the basics of Infusionsoft, like how to organize what you have, how to think, right? So making sure you're approaching things from a strategic standpoint, thinking about the reporting that you want first before you dive in, thinking about the end goal of the whole thing before actually diving in and doing all of that. And today, what I want to do, I mentioned last week very heavily, build for the reporting that you want. And then, but I didn't talk about any of the actual reports. So today, what I want to do is go through and talk about the reports that I think are important to use. And you might be surprised by the reports that I choose. And I say that mostly just because I like to be unique and surprising. So, but also because I think it's a little simpler, I think, than most people approach it. Then I want to talk about this concept of campaign stringing. Basically tying a bunch of campaigns together. And I want to talk about some different strategies, why you should do it, how you can do it, stuff like that. And then I want to talk about my favorite plugins. And I might even let Bryce do a little on-the-spot shout out to himself since he's on the call, because we have the whole office there. I might even request that all of them do an impromptu version of some song that they can choose together there in the office since they're all there. And because I really want to hear Todd sing. He's shaking his head no. Then at the end of what I have to say, what I would like to do, we have some great minds on the call today. I'd like to open it up for discussion. We'll probably just go through and maybe talk about some of the topics that I mentioned today. As I'm going through, if you have things that you want to say, like that you think are important to bring to the group, go ahead and write them down or whatever. And when we get to that point, we can go around and talk. And then if there's any questions, then we can get those answered. Any technical questions about Infusionsoft, anything really. We can go into that kind of stuff, and then we'll call it a day for now. And as we continue going with these, I think that discussion is going to be an important part of what we're doing. because it helps. I have a lot of experience in Infusionsoft, and I have a lot of understanding of how to do things, but I by no means do I think that I have all the right answers. I think that my answers are the right ones, but that doesn't mean that they're the only answers that you can have. So what I'm going to do is get started here. I'm going to leave you guys all muted for now. So keep yourselves muted as I'm going through, just so that we don't have echo and background noise and stuff like that. And then once we get into the discussion and stuff like that, we'll jump in and do that. So let's jump in and start with some Infusionsoft stuff. Let me share my screen skis here. Entire screen. I got nothing to hide. Infinity. Okay. So we'll check out my Infusionsoft account. So the first thing that I wanted to talk about in Infusionsoft is the reports that you should use. Okay. Now you can see here I've kind of dabbled in the campaign reporting. It's kind of like everything else that Infusionsoft released. I'm excited about the future of it. I'm not as excited about the present of it. But let me kind of take you through the strategy, how I approach reporting in Infusionsoft. So I talked last week about tagging and about how I use tags for everything. So I'll tag status, I'm tagging history, I'm using tags for actually like reporting things. I'm using tags basically for everything. So the number one most used report that I use is a simple contact search. Okay. What I like to do, again, because I know going into it, let me explain sort of the strategy behind this, because a lot of people will just tell you, oh, just use contact searches and tag a bunch. Let me explain to you why, in the long run, it makes more sense to use just a regular contact search for the bulk of your reporting. So the first thing is the contact search has the most options. Okay. First of all, obviously you can search by tags, but you can also search by a lot of other things. Okay. So first of all, any of the custom fields, which by the way, you don't have all of the custom fields on the contact record available to you in many of the reports that Infusionsoft has. Okay, which is why I like to use the contact search, because it's going to be the most effective as far as being able to segment by specific pieces of information that are on the contact record. Now, most of the reporting that I want, I'm building into my tagging. Okay, so because of the way that I'm building my tagging around history, around status, around all those kinds of things, it's easy for me to pull back exactly what I need, because the tagging is being handled by the campaign, and then all I have to do is pull up a report of the tagging, and the report that I need is accurate because it's controlled by the campaign, and we're not assuming that the way that they built the report is going to work the way that I'm thinking about the reporting. Okay, so okay, good, we're all muted. Oh, Daniel, I'm going to mute you real quick. You guys just really enjoy this infinity thing we got going on here? Okay, so the whole idea there is you want to, like I said before, you want to build for the reporting that you're going to be building, and if for the reporting you're going to want to see, I should say. And if you know that in advance and you use tags, the contact search will handle 95% of the reports that you need. Okay, because at the end of the day, it's going to give you how many people have opted in. If you're building in with tags, history tags and things like that, you can also do historical numbers. So you can say not only I want to know all the people that have opted in versus shown up for the webinar versus stayed until the pitch, all these kinds of things, but also historically you can look up and see, okay, here's all the people that have ever opted in for this webinar or have ever actually shown up to the webinar. And also if you use plus this and some fanciness there, you can actually you can put the date that those things happen, and you can pull back specific reporting that says, okay, in this dashboard widget, I want to pull back all the people that registered last month. Okay, and I can show you, I'm going to talk about plus this a little bit later, I can show you kind of how that works. So contact searches are the number one report that you need in Infusionsoft, and I would highly recommend that this be the number one report that you use. Again, it depends on, you have to build the tagging into the campaign itself in order for this to work. But if you do have the tagging built into the campaign, you have everything working that way, then it works out. It ends up being the best thing you can have. Okay. Now the second report, I really only deal with two reports in general, and then there are some specific reports that you need if you're looking for a specific number, like a very, very specific bit of information. But that's not a report that you necessarily have on a dashboard. It's not something you need to know all the time. It's just, oh, I need to know what my conversion percentages are on my emails, right? Like across the board. So I'll go to the campaign conversion report, or I need to know the sales, not the cash collected, but the sales for this particular product in this month, and you can go through and do that. But if in general, when you're looking at high level at the reports that you need, you don't need very many. So I use the contact search for all sort of campaign level stats, and I'll even use it for sales. Like I look at the number of sales based on the tag that's applied. And then the second stat that I use, there's kind of this is where there's variation. There's going to be some variation for you. But the second stat that I'll use is in e-commerce reports. I like to use either all sales or the payments report. Okay, and it depends on how you run your business. Some businesses in their accounting, they run based on like actual sales, meaning okay, it's a sale. We get credit for the whole sale this month, even though they're on a 3-pay, right? So if you have a $2,500 product and it's a 3, sorry, that the math's going to be terrible on that. Let's say a $3,000 product. Math's easy on that one. And it's a 3-pay, right? So they're going to pay $1,000 this month, $1,000 next month, $1,000 the month after that. If you're on the sales model, you made $3,000 this month, even though you didn't get the cash until 3 months down the road, and then there's receivables and et cetera. That, by the way, is the extent of my finance understanding. So I just know that there are some businesses that do sales and some businesses that run on a cash collected basis, right? It's all about cash flow. So if you do cash flow, then you want to pull out payments, right? You just want to do the payments report. And if you want sales totals, actual sales totals, then you're just going to use the all sales report and then segment it by the product or the group of products that you're looking for. Okay. Now, the nice thing about some of these reports as well is, like I said before, in some instances there are specific numbers that you need on a specific day for a specific purpose, right? Today I need to know, of all the people that joined my webinar 6 months ago, how many of them bought these 2 products? Okay, then you're going to come in, you're going to do all sales report based on the tags, right, that were applied before in that campaign. You'll pull up the numbers that you need based on that. Okay. So again, the point that I'm making here is that you don't need to try and pull together all these different types of reports. I like to use just contact reports based on tags because I've already set up the campaign that way. It all kind of, again, it depends on you having built your campaign that way in the beginning. And then I'll use all sales totals just to get the number. Like I want the dollar amount, and not necessarily just the number of people that bought, but I want the dollar amount of the sales that we've done. Okay, so I'll pull that in. Now, if you want to get fancy, there are some cool things you can do around sales and around different numbers, where you can pull back. You can do some math fun stuff in plus this and pull back, your pipeline valuation. So, for example, if I know that I'm going to get, if I know that I have, let's say well, let's look at this right here. It's a little bit less than 50%. We'll say this is, well, no, this is a little bit more than 50%. So we'll say if I have a 2-step campaign, ignore what this actually is. 2-step campaign, and I know that this is the first step on the bottom and the second step is on top. If I know that a little bit more, or sorry, no, you're right. The top number is the first step, the bottom number is the second step. A little bit more than 50% of the people who take the first action take the second action. Okay. Now I know that I can take the valuation of these people here. Say this second step is buying a product. Step 1 is opt in. Step 2 is buy a product. Well, now I know of these people, 50% of these people are going to pay for the thing that they're paying for here, which means I can put an actual valuation on this group of people right here. So essentially, I take this number, I multiply it by whatever the ratio is between these two, then I multiply that number by the cost of the product, and then I have an actual number. So say if I'm selling a let's say a $1,000 product, and I'm getting about, let's say like what, 55%, maybe 52% conversion on it. So I know, okay, I've got 23 people here times 1,000 is $23,000 times 0.52, which is about $11,000, right? So I know that this group of people here is worth $11,000 to me, right? So you can go into some depths of those kinds of things. It requires a little bit more understanding, and you really have to be doing something with that information. So you don't want to just spin your wheels and build reports because it's fancy. You want to build those reports because if you know that you've got $11,000 sitting in your campaign or in your lead pipeline, you can put time and effort into getting some of that money into your pocket, because right now it's in their pocket. Right? So those are the main reports that I use. It'll be interesting, I think, when we go to the discussion later. I want to hear some of the reports that you guys use and why and how. So I want to understand not only what reports do you use, but why do you use them, and then what are you using that number for? So what do you get from it? What does it bring to you? I think that will be super interesting for the group. Okay, next topic. I'm going to take a drink of water real quick because I'm thirsty. Okay. So the next topic that I want to talk about is a very important concept, and it's called campaign stringing or contingency marketing, or Frank calls it about 100 different things. There's lots of people that call it different things. But the idea is not siloing your campaigns. Okay, so I'm going to go into my campaigns, and I really should have, if I'd have prepped for this better, it would have made more sense. But I'm going to come down here and look at these two campaigns down here. Now, I mentioned last week a little bit about using contingencies. I think I did it in here. Contingencies meaning when somebody doesn't take the action that you want them to, you have some sort of follow-up for them. So it's not like they just die here, but they have something else that they go do. Normally, it's another campaign, right? But the idea here is, with campaign stringing, is you want to step back from each of your individual campaigns, and you want to think about your marketing strategy as a whole. Okay? A lot of times we can get really, really excited about one campaign. We can dive deep. We build that one campaign, and we think, okay, this is the campaign. We're going to run people through it, and we're super excited about the conversions we're getting on that campaign, but we don't realize if you have a webinar, if your webinar is converting at a great, you're like top to bottom, you're converting really well, let's say 15%. Right, of registrations purchased. That is huge. Well, yeah, that's a good number. 50% is a good number. 15 to 20. That means 80% of the people that registered did not buy. You get 80%. So say you have 1,000 people register for the webinar, right? 200 of them, 150 to 200 of them actually bought something. You got 800 to 750. Man, my math is terrible. 800 to 900, or 800 to 850. God, sheesh, I'm so bad today. There's just people that aren't. They're warm. They're hot. They're not even just warm leads. They're hot leads. They're interested in what you have to say. Hang on. They're interested in what you have to say because they registered for it, right? They may have even gotten on the webinar. There's lots of different places where they can fall off the webinar, right? So registration didn't happen. They didn't show up for the webinar, right? There's all those different places where the whole process can go wrong, and you need something for those people. So what I like to do is step back and think, okay, I got a webinar. That's step one. Okay, what's my step two? If someone registers for the webinar but doesn't show up to the webinar, what am I going to do with them? All right. So the first time I'm actually going to try and get them to re-register for the webinar. But what am I going to do with them after that? Okay. Actually, no, I'm going to use this webinar campaign template here, because it actually has the full thing. Here we go. So first time I'm going to try and get them to re-register, and then after that, what am I going to do if they don't re-register? Okay, so at this point, what do I do with these people here? Well, I need another campaign. I need something else for them to do. What happens with the people that do actually get on the webinar, but don't stay until the pitch, right? So I've got something for them, but what happens if they still don't buy after this, right? What happens if they register, they get on the webinar, they stay all the way until the offer, they see all this extra content here, but they still don't buy? What am I going to do with these people, right? You need another campaign. So that becomes step two. In this instance, actually the webinar is step two, and the first one would be this auto launcher for the strategy. And then you think not in terms of individual campaigns as being like the pieces in the campaigns, but you think of, okay, let me make a bigger campaign, and each of the sequences, so quote unquote, in the campaign are these smaller campaigns. So you might have like an automated launch, or you might do a live launch and then do a webinar as a follow-up to the launch, and then you might do like a video series as a follow-up to the webinar, and then you might do just like a sale. You might give them like 4 days to just buy some product. You know, just say, hey, we're going to give you the product for half off, or for 75%, or whatever it is. But if you think globally about the way your campaigns work with each other, what happens is not only do you have more content that lasts longer, it basically, instead of having a webinar, which lasts, the whole campaign might last for like a week and a half if they go through the whole thing, right? So this campaign here, they'll register for it, There's 2 days that go by between registration and showing up for the product or for the actual webinar, right? In this strategy, there's a lot to be said about doing same-day webinars, but we'll get into that later. Register 2 days here. They show up to the webinar, right? Then there's if they don't see the offer, there's 2 or 3 days here, 2 or 3 days here, and then there's another 4 days here. So that's like a week and a half, right? Top to bottom. Well, that's a week and a half for one campaign, but if you have 3 or 4 of these strung together, now you've got almost a month's worth of content, meaning you're going to be hitting this person for an entire month from different angles, maybe about the same product, maybe about different products, maybe about the same product, but spoken about it from a different angle. You're much more likely to pick up a lot of those sales. And the beauty of it is, the absolute beauty of the whole thing is, you have a better chance of, well, you can continue just to cycle them through all of your campaigns because the memory span, so to speak, of a lot of the people that are on your list, of just people who get marketing in general, is pretty small. So if you invite them to a webinar, and let's say you invite someone to a webinar after they've gone through like an automated launch, okay? You invite them to a webinar, but they don't register. You can continue to invite them to that same webinar until they register. I mean, not necessarily right in a row. You're not going to just put them in an endless loop here until they actually register for it. But in the future, you can always come back to this campaign because they haven't even registered. And even if they register but don't show up, you can still continue to invite them to this same webinar because they haven't seen any of the content, right? You might think about changing up you might have a different set of invite emails and a different set of reminder and indoctrination emails. But most likely, if you're doing your job in the invite emails and in the reminder and indoctrination emails before the actual webinar starts, they're going to get on the webinar. So the converse of that, or the flip side of that, is if they don't get on the webinar, they didn't see this content, which means you can send it to them again and again and again and again. Now, one little caveat to that I'll point out at this juncture is, well, I talked about last week about email deliverability, and there is something to be said for putting people through a bunch of campaigns when they're not responding, because you're kind of ruining your email deliverability credit, so to speak. But at the end of the day, the numbers don't lie about this strategy, about continuing to put people through the same campaigns. And so I think we can just bank on the fact that you might lose a little bit of your credit, but you'll have more cash, right? So at the end of the day, you can either have a perfect credit score, or you can have like a 600 and be cash rich. I think we would all rather be cash rich, right? So that's kind of the idea. Now, that's true of any of these campaigns. If someone hasn't taken the action, that's again why I say tag everything and keep track of the reporting, because as you go through, you can set up this whole system to automatically route people into campaigns based on what they have and haven't seen. So at the most complicated, you can have as many as 10 or 12 different campaigns that you're running people through. And then what I like to do is create a separate controller campaign that decides which of those other campaigns that this contact will get put through. Okay, so for example, I'm going to share something sort of at a high level, the strategy of it that we did, that I built for Frank. I'm not going to go into details because I know if he sees this, he's going to freak out. And he's going to send somebody to my house, and he's going to try and he's kind of weird about stuff like this. So I'm not going to go into the specific details of it. You can probably gather some of the things that we're doing here. But the idea is we built this campaign that would decide based on the tagging that we had already set up. So say we've got these 3 campaigns. We got a webinar, we've got an automated launch, and then we've got a goodwill. This goodwill, by the way, is just a video series. Okay, and we want to know we're tagging in each of these campaigns. Like for the automated launch, we're tagging if they register, like if they give us their information at the beginning. We're tagging if they click to any of the pre-launch videos. We're tagging if they actually see the launch. We're tagging if they, in this case it was a deposit, or if they purchase, whatever it is. So we know what they've consumed in here. The biggest thing we're using is, did they click? Did they actually interact with the content they opted in for? Most of them don't, by the way. So that's the first thing we're checking for. In the goodwill sequence, we're checking to see, we're keeping track of whether or not somebody clicks to any of these videos. Because again, we don't want to continue to send them this content if they're not interested in it. But also, we want to know when we come back around to this, have they interacted with this content? Because if not, we're going to send it to them again. And then the last thing is the webinar. And there are all kinds of different what's the word I'm looking for? Contingency points in this campaign, right? We've got did they register? We've got did they show up to the webinar? Did they see the offer? Did they buy? Okay. So what we did is we actually set up 2 of these separate controller campaigns. The first one just went through and checked to see did they interact initially with this content? Did they click to the first Goodwill video, the first video of the video series? Did they click to the first video in the pre-launch videos in the automated launch? And then did they click to actually, did they show up to the webinar? Or did they register for the webinar? It kind of depended on how we would do it, right? That was the first thing. So they'd register from advertising for any one of these. We had advertising running to all 3 of these campaigns. They'd register for one of them, and then after this campaign, at each of these contingencies, if somebody drops out, I keep jumping in and out of these campaigns, but this is kind of train of thought. Someone drops out here, what we do is drop them. This campaign kicks off this centralized campaign. I think for next week I'll build one of these and actually show you some of the, like, again at a high level, some of the things that we're doing. But it will drop them into that separate campaign. That campaign would look at the tags and see, okay, so it has the tag for Alacrity Goodwill, so I'm not going to put them back into this campaign. And then it looks for, okay, have they been invited to the automated webinar? No. Okay, we're going to invite them to the automated webinar, right? So they get invited, they register or don't, whatever happens, they go through at some juncture in this automated webinar. Let's say they register for the webinar, but they don't actually show up. Okay, so they don't show up. That puts them into the other contingency in this campaign, which is here. So we send them these emails, they register, but they don't show up, so they end up here. This puts them back into that same controller campaign, the centralized campaign, and it looks and it sees, yep, so they've already been in Alacrity Goodwill. They've already been in the webinar. Have they been in the automated launch? No. Great. We're going to send the pre-launch videos and get them to click on those, right? So then we'll say, in this instance, they get sent the videos. They click to the first video. They actually consume all this information, and then, but they don't actually buy, or they don't make the deposit and take the next step. Okay. So now you have this person that's been through quote unquote all 3 of your campaigns, but hasn't purchased still. But they also haven't actually consumed all of the content in all 3 of the campaigns, because again, if you're writing good content, if you're doing a good job on the content side of things, and someone consumes all of your content, they'll buy your product. Okay, that's sort of a base level understanding, something you should understand. Okay, so what we did then is after they've been through all of these, we'd send them back into that same first controller sequence, and the first thing it would check for was, has this person already been sent to all 3 of the campaigns through this controller campaign? The answer was yes. So then what that controller campaign would do was drop it into a second campaign, which was essentially like it was judging whether they'd interacted with the content. And instead of just checking had they opted in for the Goodwill, or had they registered for the webinar, or had they clicked on the first video, in this instance we're checking did they actually click through, right? Did they actually consume any of this content here? So again, in this instance they didn't click to the videos 2 and 3, so we put them back through Alacrity Goodwill. Then at that point they're either going to click or not, right? But they still don't buy. So now we put them into the webinar. It's going to check. So they've been through Alacrity Goodwill twice. Have they been through the webinar? Did they actually see the objection handling content? In other words, did they stay on the webinar? If the answer is no, we're going to put them back in, because obviously they didn't see the content, or they would have actually got on and stayed for the whole thing, right? Same thing with the launcher, right? It actually would skip the launcher, because from the story we had from before, it was checking to see whether or not they'd clicked to video 1, and since they had clicked to video 1, then we wouldn't put them in, because we have to assume they've already seen this content. Now, if there's extra content down the road, if all of your campaigns have 4 or 5 steps they have to go through, you can continue to drop people into these campaigns based on what steps they've actually seen. So you could build 3 or 4 of those controller campaigns that looks deeper and deeper at what the person has actually been consuming, and then send that content to them to get them going that way. So again, this requires that you approach your campaign building from a high-level whiteboard, like John was talking about last week. Whiteboard it all out first. Have a good understanding of where you want the person to go, what the flow is going to be of the whole thing, and then make sure that you have these contingencies taken into account, because you can have 3 campaigns and cycle people through them 4 or 5 times, and again, the beauty of that is you get 6 months worth of content Like you don't have to keep coming up with content to send these people. Like if you're struggling with writing a newsletter or coming up with relevant current content, you don't need that because you've got all of that in your invites to register for these webinars, for all these different things here. So, um, and the other thing is you can't overlook the timing. The timing in marketing it might be the most important factor in whether or not somebody buys. You might send the right content at the right content, um, the right message. Everything is perfect, and the person would really understand it. But it's just a bad time for them. They don't have time. They don't have the cash for it. Whatever it is. But if you come back at them again 3 or 4 months later, remember they're getting buried in emails from everybody that they're signed up for. I'm a marketer. I understand how email marketing works, and I am still subscribed to like 1,000 lists. I get hundreds of emails every day, and I literally forget which emails I got like 5 minutes after I archive them. Don't read them, most of them, unless I really like the content that's being sent. But anyway, so keep that in mind and understand. We had, in my experience, it's not uncommon for you to get a significant amount of sales from contacts who enter your campaign, enter your funnel from one campaign, but buy from a second or third one. In fact, probably the large majority of the sales that we got for some of the info products when I was with Frank, and it's not just Frank, I've seen this happen a bunch of times. You set up a campaign to accept new leads. You're doing Facebook advertising to 3 or 4 different campaigns, and most of the time, the first campaign you put them through, they don't buy from. That makes sense. We all get that because 80 to 90% of the people that we put through the campaigns don't actually buy the first time, right? But if you go through and continue to send them different campaigns, and sometimes it's even the same campaign they opted in for, but it's just the second time around. So just keep that in mind. This campaign stringing thing is important, and I think it can amplify your effectiveness. So you have 2 or 3 campaigns, and you're just cycling people through those. Like, use the marketing that you've already built, I think is the point. Use the marketing you've already created because it's there, and it goes to waste if you try and come up with new stuff every time. All right? Okay, that took longer than I thought it was going to take, but it's fine. The last thing that I want to talk about, what I'm going to do here is just sort of mention the plugins that I like, that I use, and then maybe we'll do a call in the future where I'll highlight specific things, and I'll go through some of the things specifically that I like to use. Okay, so first, if you don't have plus this, you need to go get it like post haste. I think everybody that's on the call right now has it, but anybody who's seeing the recording, if you don't have plus this, you need it. Okay, and I'm not just saying that because I was helpful in building that, and I used to work for Plus this. I'm saying that because as an implementer of Infusionsoft, as one of the people that's been implementing Infusionsoft longer, and I've implemented Infusionsoft for more businesses than just about anybody else in the world, and I could say that because just because I've been around for as long as I have, and because I think I have the number somewhere, but I think I'm at 500 plus now businesses that I've implemented for, and I'm not just talking about like in general. Like, I've actually had a personal hand in implementing Infusionsoft for that many, and that's just time. That's just 10, 12 years of implementing. Plus, it's the best tool to get you from zero to implemented in terms of additional things that you need for Infusionsoft. So the reporting tools, if you're using webinars, if you're doing, there's all sorts of things that you just need to check out. And I'll say it this way, you don't even need to look at the price. Honestly, you should pay whatever they ask you to pay, because this is the thing I've saved. I remember some of the things we used to have to do in Infusionsoft to get what we wanted. Literally, like, the difference in time in what I can do now versus what I had to do before, I'm saving days of my life, which that's the time you just can't get back. I remember how much time I used to have to spend when I was implementing, and Plus this just makes it awesome. Now, I'm not getting any like referral credit for that. You're just going right to Plus this and you're buying, and I'm not taking referral credit from them. And Bryce is on here. He can confirm that I'm not taking any referral credit. He might try and send me stuff. If he sends me Hank's root beer, I will definitely drink all of that. But but I believe fully and completely in Plus This. You should definitely check it out. Plus, not only that, I think they're still using some of the recordings that I made for their idea guides. So there's, I just really want my voice to be heard by more people. So Plus This, definitely check it out. The stuff you can do there is awesome. We'll definitely do a day where I talk about some of the cool things you can do with Plus This. Another plugin that I absolutely love is Fix Your Funnel. Now, some of you who know about the two Plus This and Fix Your Funnel might be like, oh, but don't they do the same things? The answer is no. I don't use Fix Your Funnel for any of their bot things because I'm not a huge fan of their interface and like the way it works. But as far as SMS conversations, I hear there is some whisperings that Plus This is going to be coming out with some SMS conversation stuff, and they kind of have it now. I haven't tried it yet, so I don't really know, which is why I'm saying Plus This. But I have used the Fix Your Funnel conversations text message conversation feature, and it is awesome. They also have an automated dialer system and like a text message interaction thing where you can download a thing onto your iPhone or your iPad. You can actually text back and forth from the number that you're using in like the outbound text messages, and people can actually call you on that number, which is really cool. So I like Fix Your Funnel for that. They also have some other cool things, so I would check them out. And the guys that started it are cool guys, so that's always a plus. And then the last one that I'm going to talk about right now before we go to discussion and questions is Zapier or Zapier. I still don't know how to pronounce it. I'm going to go with Zapier because Zaps makes more sense. I have used Zapier in so many different ways. Basically, Zapier is just like it's a hub for integrations. So you integrate your Infusionsoft account, and then you can integrate that with basically anything else. Just about any other web service, and it's beautiful. Some of the things that I've been able to do with this, it's insane. The connection between things. So I can't even really like dig into specifics on this because you kind of have to jump in and take a look for yourself to see what it can do for you. So Plus This, Fix Your Funnel, and Zapier, those are the three plugins that I use the most, and really the only ones that I use significantly enough to mention here. There are a lot of other ones that I think are cool and have some cool benefits and can be beneficial to you in your business, but those are a little bit more specific, and we can talk about some of the things there. So those are the three that I recommend. Like I said, in the future, we'll probably do a specific episode. In fact, maybe I'll talk with Bryce, and maybe we can get him to come on and talk specifically about Plus This, and then we can answer questions about that. So anyway, so I'm excited about that. There's cool stuff going on around the community that I've seen. We got some Infinity action going on again. Around the community, some cool apps that are being developed, and I'm excited about all those things. So we'll see kind of how the plugin thing shifts and changes as we go. But I'm pretty sure that Plus This is going to remain at the top just because all the crap I give Todd, he's actually kind of a smart guy. Anyway, let's go ahead and talk about some of these things. What I'm going to do is come around and let's just go ahead. I'll unmute you guys one at a time, and let's just go through and chat quickly. Again, like I'd like to talk about, get your reaction to any of the things that we talked about today, and then get any insights that you have to share. And then for those of you that were not on last time, just introduce yourself quickly and what you do, what you work for, and sort of like if you want to share something you guys are working on right now, that'd be awesome. And we'll go from there. So I'm going to start with Bryce because he's the furthest left. I think it's because he got on last. So Bryce is here, and you are now. Oh, I think you have to unmute yourself.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes, we can indeed.
Awesome. Yeah, so I'm Bryce. I do the marketing for Plus This, so probably heard a little bit about what we do here. What I'm working on right now is getting the word out on a bunch of new features we've just released. So yeah, you mentioned some of them on there.
For that.
Yeah, we just did a big relaunch of Plus This as far as like the whole coding stuff. He keeps mentioning Todd. Todd is our lead developer, and so once we got that whole new background for Plus This setup, we've just been releasing features left and right. So some really cool stuff. Things you can do with scarcity. We made it so you can put surveys in your emails now. We've made it so you can do SMS sequences, which are kind of like those conversations you're talking about, where you can tag people in an SMS conversation based on what answers they give you. We'll have more on that too, I'm sure, and just a whole bunch of stuff. So really fun.
Nice, awesome. So Bryce, you use Infusionsoft, I think, differently than some of the other people on the call.
Yeah.
In that you're not one of the marketing nerds like we are, like the building nerds. You're like the marketing nerd. You're like the content guy. Whereas
Yeah.
we like the Lego guys. We like to build the stuff in Infusionsoft and make it fun and pretty. So why not, from your perspective, what types of, if there's any, what types of reports do you use? What are you guys doing for, if you, whatever you can share, what are you guys doing for your
Yeah.
campaigns in terms of like the flow, the structure, that kind of thing?
Yeah. Well, what you shared on the call is very similar to what we like to do too. Being able to track where someone is in a campaign as they're going through it, using like those contact saved searches and basing it on tags that show what status they're in that campaign. Um, that's a lot of the reporting we do. We also use Wicked Reports for reporting on like advertising and stuff like that. So those are probably the biggest two. We use a lot of internal Infusionsoft stuff. Really recommend what you taught on this call.
Are there any?
That's really cool.
Yeah. Are there any other reports that you use in Infusionsoft, like specific for what you guys are doing?
A lot of it's custom for like tracking how many free trials, how many cancels. Mainly the high level, like really important numbers to keep a pulse on the business.
So as far as
So
Infusionsoft is concerned, you're basically using contact searches and then
yeah,
the sales numbers. Okay.
totally.
All right. So that's one to back up what I said before, which is good.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. Now, do you guys? I know you guys use Plus This obviously a lot. Do you
Sure.
guys use any other systems, any other plugins to run what you do?
Oh, yeah. Actually, there's one that would be great to mention. There's these guys that won the Battle of the Apps this year, Convertly. I don't know if you've heard of them or not, but they do a lot of this thing called on-site retargeting, where you can target different offers based on what pages people are on your website. So right now, like you saw it when you had it up on the Plus This site up there, we have like our Campaigns of the Titans giveaway there. And we're getting about a over 50% opt-in rate off of a freaking pop-up. So it works really well if you do it right. And Convertly's been a really easy tool for setting up these really kind of smart, targeted offers that you can do. So I'd recommend checking them out for sure.
That's awesome. That's actually way cool. I'm definitely gonna check that out.
Yeah.
I've been out of the discussion forum for too long to know all the cool new things. The good thing is, the thing I'm excited about is the fact that the stuff that I like is still relevant. It's kind of
Oh,
like
yeah.
if you grew up in like whatever it was, the 70s and the 80s, the 60s and 70s, and you were really into like Pink Floyd, and it's like still relevant today, right? It's that kind of a conversation. Plus, this to me is kind of like that's kind of what it's like. So. Cool. Well, what are there any? Actually, you know what? I'm gonna wait. We'll open it up for Q&A and stuff at the end. I want to kind of go through everybody
Sure.
else and
Yeah.
their input. So
Appreciate it. I'll mute myself again.
all right, Danielle, it's you. Do you and Michelle want to talk together, or do you want to talk separately?
Yeah, we can talk together if you want. Michelle?
Yeah.
You want to?
Yeah.
Can you hear her right now? We were sharing one.
Go ahead and unmute yourself so that when you talk, the screen flips over to you.
Okay. Is that working now?
No, you're good. Michelle, I think, is still muted.
Yeah, she might want to stay muted just so that you don't get the
So
echo.
we don't have feedback. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you able to hear her right now, Michelle?
Yeah, when she talks, she's coming through your mic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's an effective mic.
Yeah. Well, at least it works. Yeah. So I wasn't on the call.
Quickly, just to start, and I'll feed you the.
Sure.
So first of all, just kind of reintroduce what you guys are doing yourselves and what you guys are doing, and then I want to talk about reporting first. So like, what types of reports are you guys using? How do you use them? What are you using them for? That kind of thing.
Yeah, for sure. So I've been in ICC since December 2011. Have an IT background. Yada yada yada. So Michelle has actually come on board full time with me as of the 15th of July. Michelle does a lot of copywriting, which is fantastic, and the one thing we know that generally stalls most projects. I mean, it's one thing to come up with the idea, the foundation, know that it works, but if you don't have either copy or the right copy in particular, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how beautiful it is, how elegant it is, how efficient it is. There's no return. So yeah, so that's the fantastic thing that Michelle brings, in addition to being my partner in life. And also, she is doing more of the Infusionsoft stuff. So we're working towards her being able to work with clients independently. But ideally, a lot of times, her and I will be working together with people together. We find that works way better. As you know, the more input you have, the greater the output is, right? You know, the different ideas and everything else. So yeah, so we're, you know, I've been doing this since December 2011, officially on my own since 2013, and we're taking this to a business level now. So rather than being something that I had to do, you know, to pay the bills and everything else, to something much more, which I'm really happy about. Yeah, reporting. There's a few reports. Receivables is a big report. I mean, that's always the first thing I do whenever I start working with a new client, is I go in there and see, you know, like how many delinquent customers do they have, and you can find. I've found 6 figures before. You know, just simply, hey, you're not keeping an eye on this. And the one thing.
Explain just for the recording, like why that's so important.
Well, the thing is, and it all depends on what report you're looking at as well. So I made a very rookie mistake in the beginning. There's a failed invoice report. So under e-commerce reports, there's a failed invoice. So to me, that would make sense to be the one I would look at, you know, daily or weekly, because that would show anything that's failed. It's not. You want to look at the reports that you mentioned, but the reports that I always look at is receivable. So it's going to actually show you when payments were due for customers that you're working with. And generally, if you're not keeping an eye on that, it can build up substantially. And I have, like I said, I have seen businesses with 6 figures of standing revenue. And it's not even that they had that much of standing revenue, they had no idea.
Right.
So that's always the first thing I look at whenever I start working with a new client. Is okay. So how's the money situation? Because without the money, you know, not great.
Right.
The other one I always look at is the email broadcasts report. So always looking to see the metrics on how well the conversions are doing. You know, like you were saying with the split testing, you know, we have found generally the more links you can get into an email, including graphics, the better. So we have found 3 to 5 links generally is good. PSs work fantastic. Images slow people down, so if they're scrolling, they'll stop. People love clicking on images, so always making sure that you're hyperlinking your images whenever you can. But reporting-wise, so just to kind of take this in that direction, is the one thing that we generally do, not always, but particularly in a launch, we will tag each of the links. So first link clicked, second link clicked, third link clicked, first video link clicked.
Yeah.
And then you can see where people are interacting with your copy. So it gives you a better idea reporting-wise on what's really being effective. So generally, most times people click at the top or the bottom, but then you may also see that, hey, this image over on the right-hand side really converted well for some reason. So that's something that we need to keep trying and seeing if that works. So those are some of the reports that we do as well. So even outside of the standard reporting is, you know, looking at so going into tags, showing the numbers, and seeing where people are interacting. And the reason why we also do link 1 clicked, link 2 clicked, link 3 clicked is because, as you know, and this is a little tip for everybody out here that you know, if you're using, well, it doesn't matter what you use. I'm using TextEdit on my Mac or Notepad on my Windows machine. If you separate your tags with a comma, you can add as many tags as you want to a category in one movement. So you can add 50 tags, done. So if you're doing email 1, link 1 clicked, email 1, link 2 clicked, it's very easy to do find and replaces. So you're being more efficient with, you know, rather than what the link is, you can count what link it is. I mean, that's easy enough. So doing your find and replace within your, you know, your notepad or whatever, and then adding that into your clicked or behavior or whatever category you're using. So that's one of the reports that we use quite a bit as well, and that's been a really good one.
When you talk about going into your campaign like looking, not campaign, but the broadcasts,
Yes.
different broadcasts. You're going through each individual broadcast and looking at the numbers that way?
Yeah, and generally with clients, I will actually compose an Excel spreadsheet. So take each of the categories, opened, unopened, put the percentage, the numbers, so that it becomes very real, so that we can see statistically what's happening within each of these email sequences to see how well they're converting, whether, as people are progressing through, we're getting more conversion, or people are dropping off, or if they're keeping, if they're still engaging with it, it's like, okay, if they're engaging but they're not converting, maybe our call to action isn't strong enough in the emails. So it's really trying to analyze those numbers to see what's happening with our sequencing.
Gotcha. Now, I would assume the fact that you do that every time. Can you speak just quickly to a lot of people I think that see this are going to be like, I'm not going to go through all of those and look at them. Would you speak for a second to how important that is for the numbers that you're pulling, and how effective it is to take the time to go through and look at the individual broadcasts, to look at the conversion reports, pull that into, and I mean that's like a day's worth of work depending on who it is and how many broadcasts they've sent. So like what's been the effectiveness of that? What's like the result?
I think it all comes down to money is in the details.
Okay.
I mean, it really is. I mean, unless you're.
Well, that's the same. That's the same thing about the mindset of going straight for the receivables, because it's the same thing. Everybody probably has. Everybody I know, in fact, has a significant amount of money just sitting in receivables stuff that they're just invoices that never didn't go through. And if you don't say anything, by the way, side note, if you don't say anything to your customer, they're not thinking about the invoice they owe you. They're thinking about Johnny's baseball game. They're thinking about their own clients. They're thinking about whether or not Khaleesi's going to die in the next episode of Game of Thrones. They're not thinking about whether or not they paid you. And even if they are, they're just excited that you haven't said anything, that you haven't cut off their access, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's very good. When you go to them, first of all, people by and large, people don't know, and once they find out they haven't paid you something, they happily fork over the cash. I mean, they've already paid for the thing, or they've already agreed to pay for the thing. So I think that's good. The kind of the point I want to get across is that sometimes you have to think, like you said, think about those details, and sometimes you got to do work in order to get the money that you're looking for.
Well, and it also comes down to really analyzing your campaign, right? So it's like you were saying within your example of the three, it's okay, did they take this action? No, they didn't. So I always look at Infusionsoft as, back in the day, the choose your own adventure, right? Go to page 52 or go to page 101.
Right.
Okay, and then you're going to go down a different path, and then based on the path that you take, so whether you open something, whether you consume something, whether you've consumed, like you said, to the point where they've seen the offer, you're going to take them in a different direction, ideally everything leading into one point.
Yeah.
And so the other thing that I actually made note of, because I didn't want to forget this one, and I'm sure, I mean, I think he even said this on the first call, not entirely sure, but there was the stat way back in the day, and I'm sure it's still the same, is about 90% of the Infusionsoft users use about 10% of the application.
I will accept being associated with that quote. I've never actually said that myself, but my brother says it all the time.
And that's where I must, yeah.
Yeah, I'll accept being associated with that quote because it's
cool. When it is true. And so the funny thing is every time in my early years, and I haven't been to ICON in a few years and whatever else, but the one thing I was very purposeful when I first got immersed into this environment, I guess, or this ecosystem, was talking to people and finding, like, what are you using the app for? And one of the things, and I know, and I'm pretty sure, and correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm glad I'm talking to you, because I've heard it through the grapevine, the 6th Division is not big fans of opportunities.
I think you will find smaller fans of
smaller fans. Absolutely. I get there's limitations and everything else. But again, speaking to the money, it's fantastic when you can automate the journey that someone comes in. So when you have a new prospect, whether you've actually scheduled the call, whether what the outcome was, if you won the deal, okay, so then you have, okay, so these people need to be notified, the documents need to be signed, after the documents are signed, the next, so it creates a very consistent experience, and you can make sure that things don't get missed. So until everything is checked off, you don't move them into the next opportunity stage.
Right.
So I'm a huge fan of opportunities, and so the pipeline stage report is the one that I was going to mention right now.
Good.
It's incredible, and then at a glance you can see specifically where people are in your system.
Right.
The other part with opportunities is the automation you can do for a lot of, like, if you offer, and this is how I've used it with Kickstarts, and sorry, I'm going to shut up now in just a minute because I'm taking up too much of the time.
Good. This is good. This is good.
The other thing with opportunities is everybody looks at it as a sales-based tool, which is how it's marketed.
Mm-hmm.
What about using it for your coaching programs? So generally, that's how I've used it with using Kickstarts, or anything that's generally going to be the same regardless who the individual is. They schedule, okay, so they purchase, they're moved into purchased. They schedule their call, they moved in there. They have their first call, second call, third call. So you can use plus this, for instance, to take the hours that they have and subtract, so to put the remaining hours into a custom field. So if they have 10 hours, now they're 9, now they're 8, now they're 7. So you're not doing that, but you can easily see what the hours are. So that's why I really like plus this. But also, when you move them from one stage to the other, there may be specific homework that's the same for every individual that you're working with that you want them to complete prior to your next call. And then you can have the reminder saying, hey, our call is, I mean, if you're going to do it that way, you know what I'm saying. So you can use opportunities not just for sales, but for also any programs that you're delivering to clients.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you brought that up, because I thought about bringing that up before, but I thought, you know what, I don't use them myself, so it'd be a little bit disingenuous. But it's very important, I think, for everybody to understand. I said this last time on the call. I was talking about tagging, like the tagging naming convention. I said the 6th Division naming convention is great, and I think that because I helped come up with it. But
I need to learn about that one.
It's not the only way to do it. You need to have a system. That's what's important. And same thing with opportunities. Now, Division doesn't use opportunities. I tend not to use opportunities. I'm not opposed to using them as much. I kind of separate myself a little bit from the staunch never will we ever type mentality that Brad has. But if you look at it from, again, he has generated, 6th Division has generated a holistic approach. And within the confines of the holistic approach to using Infusionsoft, it actually makes more sense not to use opportunities, just because of the way they're doing everything else.
Right.
Now, if you're going to use opportunities, the beauty of opportunities is that it will shortcut a lot of the time that it takes to build, but you have to be careful of who uses opportunities. If you're good at using opportunities, use opportunities, because they make things a lot easier. But the problem is you can also turn opportunities over to somebody else that's not as good with Infusionsoft or not as good just with technology in general, and they can cause problems. So there's conversations both ways, but I agree with you. It's very important to not overlook technology that's right in front of you that you can use. You don't have to build it a certain way just because somebody told you to. You want to create the system that's going to work best for you, for your lifestyle, for your employees' lifestyles, for the way you think about things and all that kind of stuff. So.
And I'd just like to share my add-on, my plugin, if I may.
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay. So there's 2 of them, but they're both the same. Appointment Core. Love. Did I say that? I love Appointment Core. Absolutely fantastic. I mean, it makes life so much easier for being able to schedule your calls, everything else. It integrates with GoToMeeting if you're doing that, and everything else. There is another one, Schedule Once, which is very, very big in the market right now. I've talked to them. It's a great product. I absolutely love that as well. The difference between the two, though, is Appointment Core allows you to check more than one calendar for availability, where Schedule Once, you can only check one calendar. So that's why I am on the Appointment Core side of the fence, is because I do work for a client that uses Office 365, and I use my Gmail calendar for my own stuff. So if someone's scheduling an appointment with me personally, like one-on-one work, I need to make sure that the Office 365 calendar is also being checked, because I have appointments with other clients in there as well. So that's the difference between the two. And so one thing I always try and do here as well, when I'm working with someone, is when you're aware of all the options that are available. So there's Schedule Once, there's Appointment Core. You always got to give the benefits of both.
Right.
I will keep the one I'm thinking of. This will be a conversation between you and I. but there's another one I'm thinking about as well. So that's yeah. I'll be quiet.
I'm glad you brought that. I'm super glad you brought up appointment core. I am with you on appointment core. I love it. The thing. This actually. Okay, so there's something that I want to say that I wasn't planning on saying, but you brought it up, and so it's perfect. I didn't bring up appointment core because not everyone uses appointments all the time. But I'm glad you brought it up for two reasons. One, you're right. It hands down the best appointment scheduling system right now in the system because they allow you to check multiple calendars. Number two, this is a customer service thing. When in the early days of Appointment Core, when we're brand new, Appointment Core, I believe they beat out this for the Battle of the App way back when,
Correct.
the year before Zapier did. We were not, as I was working with Plus this very closely at the time, we were not super thrilled about that because Appointment Core didn't work at all. Like not even a little. I tried using it for like a week and it didn't work. But what happened was they saw the value and understood the value of what Plus this was bringing to the table. And Plus this was very young at this time, but they understood because they were implementers of Infusionsoft.
Mm-hmm.
Reached out to us, and I had direct conversations with their developers, with their support guys, for months to get everything so that their integration was better, and so that we would have a tighter integration and we came up with ways that they could use Plus this to make their system a little bit better. And so the kind of the point there is if you're building, especially if you're in technology, you're building apps and things like that, you have to have conversations with people that are not your customers, not people that are buying it necessarily, but the people that are using it. And that's people that are like power users. Like you go to anybody at 6th Division, they are your best beta testers for every single person out there, and Plus this too. Anybody out there who's building an app for the Infusionsoft community, you got to find the people that are implementing the most number of apps and doing it the best, and those are the people that you give free accounts to, right?
Absolutely.
They're doing a good job. That's why Plus this, I don't know if they still do, but they were giving away free accounts to the ICCs.
I have one. Yeah.
Those are the people that are using it, right? They're not the people that are necessarily benefiting from it as much, but those are the people that are actually using it. So listening to that feedback from people that are actually using the software is incredibly beneficial. And to their credit, I mean, Appointment Core, like we said, it's hands down, it's the best. I mean, it was all sorts of things. The calendar loading was super slow. You could load a bunch of different calendars. The GoToMeeting thing didn't work, and I gave them the time of day, and they really wanted me to help out, just because they knew that I was a power user, and the rest of the team as well. And so we ended up using that system in it.
Yeah, the whole free account thing is another conversation. I completely agree. I mean, the more people are aware of how to use something, the more that they can then offer to the people that they're working with, but then it's that understanding. You know if someone understands something. Right? You know, so that's a big part of that. The other thing I wanted to talk about is, as you know, I call it the 2-to-1 model, testing. You should be spending twice as much time testing as you are implementing. And so that's a model that we follow. It's very rare, and any time that I've done this, I have been bit in the butt. Not often, but you know, you always want to go through and you want to make sure that you're testing everything. So not taking for granted that when you look at an email preview that the formatting looks good, you need to send it to yourself. You need to add yourself to a sequence, make sure that when the goal is applied that you're removed. So the 2-to-1 for testing, I think, is very important as well.
Yeah,
that a lot of time gets overlooked.
And in fact, I think probably in the next couple of weeks, I want to do a thing just on testing. So any of you that are on the call now, any of you that are watching this after the fact, if you have specific things that you like to do when you test, I'm happy to feature them. I'll tell you, go through my testing method, but I'd also love to hear what anybody else has to say, and I'll give you a shout out. Trust me, I'm good about that. So go ahead and send me anything that you got. I love that. Like send the email to yourself. When I test, I literally put myself through the campaign.
Absolutely.
As a person.
Exactly. I'm going to let Michelle talk for a minute.
What do you have to add to the whole thing in terms of like reports that you use, plugins that you like to use, different things about Infusionsoft that way, and then we'll let Johnny speak.
I'm going to mute myself so Michelle can talk on hers. Thank you, Brett, and thank you all.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been awesome.
So I have only dabbled a little bit in the reporting, definitely the contact search and all that. I've just been making a whole bunch of notes and stuff, but I want to write for our content today. I have like 3 bonuses that I'm going to create and stuff from all the conversations that are happening. Any other additional plugins that we use are like, I'm a huge fan of Thrive themes and Membarium and LearnDash. I'm learning all of those, but I love the Thrive themes. It's so easy to use with WordPress, and to make your site look awesome with 3 clicks.
Awesome. That's cool. Yeah, no, I love the fact that we're bringing up some of these plugins I've never even heard of, which is awesome. And the best part I think about continuing to have these conversations is that everybody's going to find little things that they like for certain things, and I may not ever even have the experience, like the opportunity to go, because I deal with different types of businesses, and I'm a different type of person myself. I might not have information about all these things, and people might really benefit from them. Plus, if you're doing a good job as someone who's writing a plugin for Infusionsoft, if you're doing good work, you're creating a good plugin, you deserve to be showcased. And just because I don't use your plugin doesn't mean you should be showcased. So cool. So what are the things? Are there any specific things that you're working on that you need help with right now, or as far as like reporting or building or stuff like that?
Not right now. No,
right.
not that I can think of right now.
Okay, cool, awesome. Well, I think this is going pretty well. Let's you want to go ahead and mute yourself, Michelle, and then John, if you want to unmute yourself, we can bring this home, so to speak.
Am I unmuted?
You are unmuted, my friend.
All right, so some good ideas today. It's pretty cool stuff. Introduction, John from GrowFunnel, and I'm one of the many unofficial ICCs, I guess. And I do about half of that, and the other half is conversion rate optimization, and just general marketing consultation. One of the most important things that I think that I highlight for new clients is the importance of the lifetime customer value, specifically when it comes to 2 things. One, knowing overall lifetime customer value and knowing it by the lead source. The latter being way more important. And the reason is if I'm advertising on Twitter, doing paid advertising on Facebook or whatever, I want to know what my lifetime customer value is. That way I know how much I can spend on ads and still make a profit, and outspend my competition.
Do you have this? I'm so happy you brought this up. I'm going to interrupt you for just 1 second and ask you a question. Do you have like a ratio or like an algorithm or formula for how much you're willing to spend based on what the lifetime value is?
It's all different for me, no, but for my clients, it's basically how much profit they can live with, depending on their customer flow, how many leads they're getting. So on an idealistic level, if I'm making $1 and spending, if I'm making $101 and spending $100, that puts me in the positive. Of course, there's other costs that may not be calculated in that, like my time and things like that. But just that as a simple formula, if you're making, how much would you spend, to make $100? The correct answer really is $99.99.
Anything less than that, I would spend to make that.
Right. So that's something that it's weird to think about that way because everybody wants to maximize their profit. But if you want to really dominate a market and you're in a position to spend the money to do it, outspending your competition will get you there very quickly. If you've got the right product and right offer, everything else equal. If you're spending
case in point, by the way, case in point, exactly to this point here. I want everyone, if you don't know this, you should check this out. Uber is trying to put Postmates out of business, and Grubhub and all these DoorDash and all of the food delivery services. Uber right now is doing a thing called Uber Eats, which basically it delivers food to you. There's a flat $5 fee, and it's just like Uber, so you don't tip the driver. So you pay for the food, you pay a $5 delivery fee, and this is exactly what they're doing. They know they can pay their drivers X number of dollars, whatever, because they're making whatever profits are, and they're putting their competition out of business because it's better. It's faster. The other day, I kid you not, actually this is consistently, I've done this probably 3 times, I order from this Thai place, and normally it would take me, if I was to go to the Thai place, it'd take me 10 minutes to get there, 10 minutes to sit down, another 10 minutes to order, 30 minutes already, 20 minutes for the food to be made, it comes out, and then I can eat, right? So we're already talking about almost an hour between now and then. I pulled up the DoorDash app. I was eating my food in 35 minutes. 35 minutes. right? So I've already saved myself 20 minutes, and I only paid $5 to do it. Like, I will do that all day. So what John's saying here is absolutely true. Being able, like, you can't, although yes, you want to maximize the profit margin that you want to maximize how much profit you're making over the top. You can spend as much as you need to make that amount, especially in the beginning, because that's how you get established. So anyway, sorry, keep going, John.
No, that's good. That's exactly my point. And if you can dominate the market, you can later maximize that profit.
Exactly.
Once you've snuffed out your competition. It sounds ruthless, but they're not going to leave, but they might roll things back or try some different venues once they realize they're not going to outspend you, because they're going to say, "Oh, we're spending $50 a lead. We can't keep doing that." They could. They just didn't do the math.
Right. And that, at the end of the day, especially in marketing, you'll notice all the people you see on Facebook that are talking about, oh, I'm doing, the marketers that are they're like posting their income statements and all this stuff. These are the people that they just have the cash to spend a bunch of money on Facebook. That's why they're doing so well. Frank is doing really well on in his lead conversions and everything he's doing, because he can spend $50,000 a day or whatever the number is on his Facebook ads. It's insane the amount of money that he's dumping.
And Facebook still won't give him the time of day, probably.
No, because he's still a small fish in terms of the big people. So anyway, yeah. So keep going. What you were yeah.
So beyond that, I learned this from you when opportunities came out, and I was trying to figure out. I voiced my frustration to you with all the limitations of opportunities, and you said, "Don't do it." Tag basis is for the most part the way to go. It's not perfect for everybody, and I understand what you guys were talking about a minute ago about the opportunities. It does work well for some people, but I like to use tag-based progress searches. So I know different stages of the funnel, they're going to have this tag, and then they're going to have this tag, and in certain situations I'm going to pull those tags off and put the next tag on. Some of them I want to stack the tags on, so I can see kind of when they've gone through them. And I'm still rooting. One day we will have time-based tag searches in Infusionsoft, and I know it can be done in Plus This. It's more of a hassle than I want it full with, but.
Right.
But in Infusionsoft, I want to be able to search by the data tag was applied. I could do so much more with that.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I 100% agree with you, and I agree with you. I think that it's one of those things that should make its way through. We probably I think I know a couple of people on the PAG, the PA. Actually, I just know the president of the freaking company. I'll just call him up. I think that's something that probably will see the light of day. That's super important. There's also, I don't know if have you seen the dashboard tool that 6 Division released, John?
I don't think so.
Okay.
You
have to pay. You have to be part of their whatever Premier membership or whatever it is. But they have the ability. They've built the ability to do that, like built into their own dashboard tool that's separate from Infusionsoft. But
so half of what I do is conversion rate optimization. So I want to see where those bottlenecks are in the process, and that makes it easier. There's lots of different ways to do that. Lots of third-party tools allow you to do that. But if you can do that straight in Infusionsoft, that's great.
Yeah.
Especially if I run a campaign, I can say, all right, let's see the lead source. Who came in through this thing that we did this week, and how many people were they stopping in this funnel? What do we need to adjust?
Yeah.
And lastly, I always get excited about anything that increases or improves the user experience. And Infusionsoft, I mentioned last week, I have a love-hate relationship with them, and one of the things I hate is they are so slow to the game on responsive order forms and responsive anything. And even when they do it, it's still not right. And so there's a great app. I am an affiliate, but you don't need my affiliate thing to go check it out. But it's called Spiffy or Go Spiffy. Have you tried this?
No, I haven't. Oh, actually, no. I have seen some of the stuff that they do. I've never used it myself, but I've some people that I've worked with have. I'm pretty sure.
All my clients are using it and they love it. And basically what it is, it's a piece of JavaScript that you put into the head of the Infusionsoft order form, not the legacy order forms, but the new ones, and it makes it completely beautiful and mobile friendly. And they are, I haven't logged in to make any changes because it's kind of a fire and forget thing. But next time I go in there to customize one of the order forms, they were working on a drag and drop builder that I was on the beta of. That was really cool. And so you can have a whole sales page built into the order form, which you can still do now, but this makes it so easy. It's a drag and drop builder, customize, editor, and it works really well. So GoSpiffy.com is they get my vote for one of the top cool things lately that I've seen for Infusionsoft.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah. I'm gonna. By the way, all these things that have been mentioned. I'm gonna do my own little review of them. So I'll go check them out. And maybe next time we can do or maybe I'll just do some individual spots where I'm reviewing these different types of things. That would be kind of fun. Cool. What things are you working on? Do you have any questions? Any things you need help with?
Me, I don't. I usually do, but not this moment. You know me. If I get this one question right now, real quick, give me an answer.
If you have questions, it needs to be answered in the next like 5 minutes.
Yeah, I don't have time to wait. And, so I don't build up. Usually by the time you ask me that questions, I've already found the answers to. And I'm always getting stumped. And if you're not, you're probably not pushing things hard enough, and or you're way smarter than me, which is entirely possible.
Well, it's usually the first because it has to do with the questions that are being asked of you. And if you're not in a situation where the questions that are being asked of you are challenging to you, then you're just sort of coasting. So yeah, no, I agree with you. And I think it's actually kind of important it is important to have questions and to be question oriented, but it's also probably more important to be answer oriented and to just go find them. And being good at finding the answer, I think, is one of the huge skills that I think is being lost more and more, and people that are getting added into the community because there's lots of. I see all these questions. I had to unsubscribe from like getting notified of all the people that are posting in the partner forum and everything. How do I do this? How do I do this? It's like you could spend 2 seconds and Google it, or spend 5 seconds and just test it.
Right.
But instead, I'm going to spend 5 seconds and test it for you, and then tell you the answer, and you're going to get the money from it. So I think that's super important. But as questions do come up, though, I think there's nothing wrong with having questions and asking them, and that's most of the reason why I wanted to start doing this, is to provide a forum for people to get.
I think it's great you're doing this, and we need to get Ross on here.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know why he's not on yet. What I need to do, I'll send him a text, and I'll be like, Ross, why haven't you responded to the ad that I put up? Because I know you were included in the audience set, and I know you saw it. You couldn't have not seen it. Actually, the truth is he probably didn't see it, because if he'd seen it, he definitely would be here.
Well, he's also very highly scheduled this past few weeks, so I know I've been trying to get him to go kayaking with me, and because I go up right near where he lives, and he's too busy.
Yeah. Cool. Well, we'll definitely want to get some more people on. What I think will be interesting is for those of us that are on here, if we can, I think the more people we get onto the live stream, I'm going to start sharing the YouTube link in the group as well as on my Facebook page. So if we can get more people onto the live stream just watching, I think that will start to incur more interest in joining the thing itself, and then and that can be something that people can come back to. Also sharing the video itself, like the YouTube link, with people that might have benefit from it. There's lots of people. I know this time isn't great for anybody who's like in Australia or in some of the other spots of the world. So the video itself, I think, is going to be important. So as we can share more and get more people involved, we can do that. We have like 25 people in the group right now. So the more interaction we can have there, I think the more likely we are to have more people get on in the future, and then we can kind of format this a little better. So, but I'm super excited about what we've been able to do. The conversations we've had, I think, have been productive. I think they've been good. So, does anybody, John? I'm gonna go ahead and mute you real quick. Does anybody, before I do my little outro speech, does anybody have any? If you just want to raise your hand, have any like other random questions or things you want to say? Go ahead, Daniel.
The only other thing is with using a tag-based system is just remembering that you can't reapply a tag if it's already there. So tag management is very, very important.
Right. Very good. Thank you. That is actually really important, and you find that out quickly if you try and like re-add some, like you talk about the campaigns that I was mentioning before. You're trying to re-add someone to a campaign, but the tag puts them in is already applied, then nothing happens, and then you freak out because no one's getting put into the campaign. It's because you didn't remove.
Oh, and the other thing too, and I've done this twice, maybe 3 times, is if you're using an order form and you have a sequence before it that connects to the order form because you're sending it to your list, but you also have an opt-in page, make sure you set the order form or the web form to all contacts, not to contacts in this campaign.
Right. Definitely, because you don't want to lose those people in the campaign and have them not actually continue forward if they come from a different place.
Exactly.
Very good. Very good. All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining today. I'm excited that we are doing this. I'm excited for the people that we're getting on. This is going to be a good core group, I think. I really want to. We got to get Jeanette on here. We got to get Ross on here. We got to get people to show up. So continue to share this with people. If you have clients that are interested in understanding some of the deeper strategy, feel free to share into this stuff with them. The videos are going to be public. The live stream is going to be public. I think we're just going to restrict who can interact on the live call to people that are in the group, and we'll kind of go from there. So for next week, we'll go through and talk again about probably some testing stuff, and I kind of like the progression we've talked about, where to start in Infusionsoft and then how to get reporting out of Infusionsoft, and then I think we'll go through and talk about, I might do like some campaign builder specific tips and tricks and things like that next week, and then we'll jump on there. So again, I'll say this on the video, if you're going to join the group, you want to join up with us, it's an honor system thing to go make sure you like my Facebook page. Wunntee Unlimited Facebook page. It's just facebook.com/Wunntee. That's spelled WUNNTEE. Like the page. That's your payment to me, because I'm not charging you actual dollars. And we will continue to roll forward. I'm excited about all this stuff. And we will see you all next week. Peace out.